Command Control.
Command Control presents Hardwire Heartache, Synthetic Love Story, Episode 7, Misfortune Teller. Purplish neon blue light splashed against the observatory walkway that looked out onto the core of Radiant City. The star's radiation bounced off the inner shell of the station and converted it into usable power. Being this close to an actual star almost made Mikey forget the dread that sat in the pit of his stomach. Taking a swig of whiskey from a bottle he had in a death grip, he tried to settle his nerves as his comms began to ring. Hearing the name pinging in the back of his head, he answered and immediately spoke, thinking it might give him the upper hand.
All right, I did everything you asked me to do. So that means we're even, right?
Yes, I think my people can take it from here. But I have decided that my considerable advantage in this situation allows me to change the terms if and when I see fit.
What? What do you mean? We had a deal.
You're right. We did make a deal, didn't we? A smart man would know not to make deals with devils. But you played your friends right into my hands just as soon as you could get out of their earshot. So from one devil to another, I'm going to let you live. Your friends and the Wraith, however, are mine.
You fucking asshole. It's not too late for me to fry both of your little perverted pets and bounce out of here to the next wormhole.
I've already got assassins surrounding your fat old detective friend. The Wraith and everyone on board will be taken as soon as we locate my property. Your game is finished. The only thing you will achieve by interfering with the next part of my plan is your own death. You have been warned.
Oh, I'm gonna make damn sure I stop you. You don't know who you're fucking with.
That's all I needed to hear. I'm glad you said something, because I've got a bad habit of leaving loose ends. Not this time, it seems. It has been a pleasure, Michael. Enjoy the last moments of your life.
Mizukawa terminated the connection. Mikey turned, taking another swig of the whiskey as he tried to gather himself enough to think of his next move. Out of the corner of his eye, a pair of green and black reptilian eyes gazed silently at him. Then another, and another.
What the fuck?
Panicking, he threw the bottle toward whatever it was that was watching him.
Oh, fuck.
And tried to turn around and run in the other direction.
Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck.
Only to see a goon's face appear out of thin air. It must have been some sort of cloaking technology, but whatever it was, Mikey quickly realized he was surrounded. As the goons pointed their blasters at his head, he lifted his arms into the air, got down on his hands and knees in surrender.
I thought I was being the good guy. I knew better than this. Being the good guy is the fastest way to get killed.
The black door to the club slid open slowly as the well-dressed simian bouncer motioned for Birx to enter. Purple smoke and the sound of cool lounge music floated in the air as his eyes darted around the scene. Well-dressed folks of all walks of life sat at dimly lit tables surrounding a stage. His eyes caught on the long, slender figure of a humanoid female as she sang in a cool, breathy tone. She languished playfully over a sleek black piano as the player seated at the keys plucked a gentle, soothing rhythm.
You can't fool me, but you'll try. You look so cute when you lie.
Making his way over to the high-polished bar top, Birx slid onto one of the stools and the bartender looked over his shoulder, nodding to him as he poured a drink. The man was tall and fit, with well-kept silver hair tied tightly back in a braid. His long silver and black beard meticulously groomed, cascaded against the fine tuxedo he was wearing. Birx took immediate notice of the deep facial scar across his right cheek and the tattoos that peeked out from the edges of his finery. A small silver name tag pinned to his lapel read, Orion.
You got the look of business about you, mate. Are you drinking tonight?
Birx grinned and nodded his head slowly as the bartender sat a luminescent drink at the end of the bar, and a waitress picked it up and took it away.
Well, haven't you got a good eye? Yes to both, assuming you got scotch that doesn't glow.
Orion chuckled as he watched the waitress set the drink down at the table before his eyes returned to Birx. He pulled a crystal glass from under the bar with a diamond pattern and placed it in front of the gumshoe.
Don't gotta be a mind reader to guess that one, mate. I could also guess that you're looking for information.
Birx watched the man pour the scotch into the glass and was taken aback by the peaty, smoky smell coming off it. Not your standard Sakanico swill. This was honest-to-goodness genuine scotch.
You're not though, right? Mind reader?
Orion laughed and put the crystal topper back onto the bottle of scotch and left it beside the glass.
Of course not, mate. Just a colony lad making as honest a living as you can in the LC. I've also been doing this long enough that I got a good eye for what customers are after.
Birx swirled the scotch around in the glass again, inhaling the aroma before taking a sip. He closed his eyes slowly as he swished it over his tongue, and a genuine smile came over his lips as he swallowed the scotch and inhaled slightly.
Half an hour ago, I had no idea this place existed, and now I'm sitting here drinking the finest scotch I've ever had, talking to a colonist who probably grew up in my own backyard. Fuck, I guess the classics really do travel well.
Birx continued swirling a dark golden liquid around as Orion idly wiped off the already immaculate bar top, tattoos peeking from the sleeves of his white tuxedo shirt. Birx noticed one of the symbols as a logo for a dangerous pirate gang. His eyebrow raised a little, and Orion noticed. He simply offered a knowing smile and continued the conversation.
There's all types of worlds out here in the expanse. Species, cultures. But Earth was something special. Folks romanticize it and try to emulate parts of it almost everywhere. Gotta say, I kinda like your vibe, mate. You got a name?
Birx took another long sip of the scotch as he listened to Orion wax out about old Earth and sat the glass back down after taking the final sip. Orion motioned to see if Birx wanted another pour, and the detective nodded once before answering his previous question.
Most people just call me Birx. I got into the detective game on account of the old Earth classics. Something about finding out the truth of things always called to me.
The gentle ringing of an old-school rotary phone on the back wall went off, and Orion excused himself to answer it. Birx's eyes tried to focus as he scanned over the dimly lit lounge and let his mind wander as he gazed out into the starry blackness of space, considerably dimmed by the neon lights of the city glowing hues of blue, pink, and orange. Orion returned with a look of confusion mixed with concern.
Phone call for you, mate. Sounds proper serious.
Daniel Birx.
Teruo Mizukawa.
Birx's eyes casually scanned the room, looking for attackers, exits, and possible weapons as the voice on the other end sent him into a quiet state of terror. Billions of light years away, and still Mizukawa had found them.
I gotta admit, I almost let myself believe we were out of your reach.
I already knew you were delusional, but I guess I gave you too much credit in the intelligence department. Stealing my property once is enough for most people to find themselves face down in an unmarked grave, but I let it slide. Now you've stolen from me a second and third time. I'm afraid this golden horse is no longer in a gifting mood.
Orion tried his best to mind his own business and stick to drink orders. But as he watched Birx's body language slowly tighten and draw inward, his instincts caused the hair on the back of his neck to stand. Birx casually took a cigar from his jacket and pursed it between his lips.
I stole from you? The way I see it, you tried to fuck me over because you thought I'd be an easy fool. Looks like you're just getting what you deserve.
You should have just stayed in your little detective fantasy. But you couldn't, could you? Pretending to uphold archaic laws while helping me to break the only real law in the galaxy. On the contrary, Daniel, it's time you get what's coming to you.
Orion produced a mirror-finished flip-top lighter and held it up to Birx intentionally. As Birx looked in the mirror, he could see two hooded men wading through the crowd of people towards him. Orion lit Birx a cigar and instead of closing it, pointed it toward a secret door behind the bar. Birx nodded ever so slightly and looked Orion dead in the eyes. He motioned to the bouncer to head off the assailants before they could reach the bar.
Yeah, sure. Hey, listen. Sounds like you still love hearing yourself talk, so maybe you'll tell me what you offered Mikey to get him to trust you.
My. You would have made a fine detective if such a thing actually existed. I offered him what all little rodents want. The illusion of safety.
Just then, the simian bouncer roared in pain as one of the assailants easily twisted his arm backward, and a visceral cracking could be heard as his bones splintered. Screams of the simian spread like wildfire throughout the crowd, as the inhabitants erupted into absolute panic and started falling over one another to get to the exits. Orion pulled a gold-plated blaster from under the bar.
Looks like your train's arrived, mate. Best hop on it.
Dirk stuck down under the bar, holding his hat to his head as he darted out the secret back entrance of the bar. It emptied out onto a rusted old service alley. Like veins spreading through the city, these alleyways twisted just beneath the surface, unknown and forgotten by all but smugglers and people who needed to disappear with a quickness. Leaving the sounds of blaster fire and chaos behind him, Birx had no choice but to make his way down the twisted old corridor.
Looks like I stepped in it again. Well, what do we do now, Birxy, old boy?
He moved quickly at first, expecting assassins to be on his tail at any moment. After a good half hour of winding through a labyrinth of corridors, though, his concern was starting to ease. Noticing a light at the end of the tunnel, he sighed with relief. A purplish-blue glow from the station's core was splashing down the corridor as he leaned against the wall to catch his breath and light a cigar.
Pirate turned bartender. Apparently he can still shoot, though. Hope our paths cross again someday.
Unbeknownst to the mumbling Birx, on the other side of the opening, the goons formed up around kneeling Mikey. The leader took position directly behind Mikey, and another one prepared to film the execution for proof. They were just about to do the deed when he hollered out.
Wait. One request before you whack me. Can I get a cigarette? They're in my shirt pocket. Lighter too. Please, man.
The goons weren't looking at one another, but their eyelids would sort of flicker when they were communicating telepathically. After a moment, one of the perimeter guards came over and rifled through Mikey's pockets, placing a cigarette between his lips and tying his tie around his eyes. As the goon struck the lighter, a flame was produced and then quickly extinguished by a thick wad of goo that used to be part of the commander's head. The sound of 4 blaster shots rang out before the goon could even register what was happening. Birx stepped out from the corridor entrance and placed another blaster shot right between the eyes of the goon as it fumbled to drop the lighter and pick up its blaster. Mikey took a deep drag of the cigarette and leaned his head up to the ceiling, exhaling a ribbon of smoke and sighing his relief at the same time.
I've never been so happy to hear that damn robot leg clunking around in my life.
Standing up slowly, Mikey took his tie from his eyes and turned to Birx. As he did, he was surprised to find the barrel of a good detective's blaster now trained on his forehead.
We don't have time for this. We need to get back to the Wraith. Mizukawa is going to try to take it.
Well, we're gonna put a pin in this. But I also need to find a Bira. Just trust me, that shit in her head is extremely important. And I'm betting the Varangian and Rosie know how to defend their shit better than we do.
Mikey wanted to protest again, to drive home exactly what was going to happen if Mizukawa got onto that ship. He still couldn't imagine what Birx could be thinking, putting this android over his own blood.
Okay, Birx. I'm going to trust you. But just know that however bad you think this is, in reality, it's much worse.
Sound of metal coins dropping into a near-empty couch tinked as Abira sat back in the plush velvety seat of the theater. She plugged a wire into her temple and her eyes fluttered rapidly before coming to a complete stop. He awoke standing before a massive obsidian wall, as tall and as wide as the eye could see. As she ran her fingertips gently across the near-flawless surface, her thumb caught on a tiny hole that looked as though it had been recently drilled. Kneeling down, Abira peered into the hole and struggled to make out what was on the other side. Her attention caught on the sight that made her question if this was truly from her own mind, and not someone else's. Birx sat across the table from Daphne. They slurped down hot slices of pepperoni pizza and laughed as they cracked jokes to one another. They sat in what looked like an apartment building, a large window overlooking the unmistakable mud-crusted gloom of Sakanaco. Tipped her off that it was probably their home. Out of the corner of her eye, Daphne seemed to spot the hole and stood up, walking toward it with curiosity. She peered into it and came face to face with Abira on the other side. What must have been only a few seconds seemed to have lasted a lifetime as Daphne went to go get her father. Abira slipped out of the dream as if her processors couldn't handle what was happening.
Well, did you find out who it was hitching a ride in your train car?
Abira stared at the wall of the theater and tried to process what she had seen. Why would a memory she wasn't part of be inside her own head?
I couldn't access the memories. There was a huge black wall, and I think there was a hole in it from where you peeked inside. All I could see was some people I knew, but I wasn't there when that memory was made. At least, I don't think I was.
Well, that doesn't sound very helpful at all. You've still got a minute or so left. Let's see if I can't get you to the directory.
Isaac produced another wire from his hollow pad and banged his metallic hand against the control box of the dream machine, till the panel door popped open. After a moment of inspection and furious hollow pad typing, he motioned for Abira to go back into the dream state. She closed her eyes and was transported back into the dream. Standing in front of the massive black wall again. This time, however, Isaac appeared next to her, somehow looking a bit more muscular than Abira had noticed in the waking world. His smile was still just as greasy as ever, though. He flashed it at her and put his hand out to touch the tiny crack in the wall. Slowly it reacted and pieces crumbled away like black concrete under pressure. Once the opening was big enough to duck into, he motioned for Abira to follow him and stepped inside.
The human brain has around 2.5 million gigabytes of memory. Just like any other computer, it makes pathways to the more important data. This neural pathway becomes the basis for short-term memory.
My capacity is 4.5 million gigabytes, and I still can't calculate when you are going to make a point.
Isaac paused for a moment, as if his attention was drawn completely to something. His fingers buzzed away at his hollow pad before the black mass that surrounded them became speckled with far-off lights.
Just a bit of light conversation while I work. This process can be rather dull, and I dread awkward silences.
Isaac tilted his gaze up into the growing abyss as streaks of color began connecting at all the points of light together to reveal a map of a neural network shooting off like lightning into an ever-growing expanse. Abira looked on, unable to conceal his sense of wonderment at the spectacle.
The problem with the human brain is that, even though it has an impressive amount of space, the memories stored are unreliable, scattered, ever-changing, and sometimes crystal clear, and you can never be sure which is which.
As Isaac spoke, he backlit a portion of the neural network that looked like a storm cloud of wild connections that veered off into nothing. Then he backlit a portion that looked like a perfect fractal snowflake pattern with precise and sharp endings and beginnings.
All of my memories are as accurate as the moment they were recorded. Unlike other androids, my coding allows me to form my own opinions, even if they are irrational.
So you're a free AI. How incredibly dangerous of you. But still, your irrationality is more stable than human memories. And these are human memories, mixed with an incredible amount of consciousness.
Just then, a small, familiar-sounding voice called out from within the darkness.
Hello?
Daphne made her way to Isaac and Abira and looked up to them with her lip quivering.
Oh, it's you, Diamond Eyes. When can I go home? I keep thinking I'm awake, but it's just another dream. Can I please go home?
Whatever it was about seeing Daphne in this place suddenly caused a huge chunk of the darkness to fall away. As Abira reclaimed a piece of her lost memory, her eyes fluttered rapidly and she found herself back on Ipo. Standing guard over a small child in a hospital bed. He glanced over and saw Birx at the bedside with his face in his hands, sobbing. Another flash and she looked down at her own hands and she was hooking Daphne's lifeless body up to a massive supercomputer.
Whoa, whoa. Easy there. You're hopping all over the place. You're gonna destabilize the hardware.
At this point, Abira had almost no control as huge chunks of memory rushed back. She could hear Teruo and Birx speaking in hushed tones, but she couldn't make out where it was coming from. Her eyes were glued to Daphne as her little body convulsed.
Relax, Daniel. She was just a paperless microwave from my personal stock. No one will miss her.
Abira stood stunned as she remembered what was happening, what had already happened. She began to say it out loud. Maybe for Afnav's sake, or maybe because she needed to hear it herself.
Daphne was sick. Her little body was riddled with the same disease that took her mother. Birx had lost his wife almost 7 years prior.
Abira's eyes widened as the horror of what she had witnessed came rushing back to her. Her jaw clenched as the scene flashed before her eyes once more.
Teru found another little girl, younger, but close enough. A slave microwave. They erased her. And Teru used his disgusting technology to put Daphne's consciousness into the slave's body.
That's a lot to unpack. But we're past our time here. I can't keep extending the stay without more coins. We're gonna have to pop out.
Visions began to fade, but the last thing she heard was the instructions from Izukawa. As she began to awaken, it echoed in her mind.
Imagine the price that buyers would pay for a Mark 7 with the unsullied mind of a 6-year-old girl, Mariko. Never aging, an immortal child. Upload the consciousness to diamondize memory and continue.
Abira shot up in her chair and screamed as Isaac jumped back from her.
Those bastards!
Her head whipped toward Afnav. She crossed the gap between them at blinding speed. Rage painted her eyes red as she lifted him up by the neck. Her mind went back and forth, one half telling her to erase the data before it could be used again, the other half unsure of the ramifications of deleting a living consciousness.
I need a ship that's capable of wormhole travel now.
Afanav grunted, gasped for breath as she suspended him in the air by his neck. Abira was still so lost in the swirling revelation of the encryption crumbling. She had all but forgotten he was just a cyborg and not an android.
No problem. Just as long as you don't kill me first.
Abira dropped Afanav onto the floor and he sat there coughing and choking. She kneeled down in front of him and locked eyes with him. She had no intention of killing him, but she had to get back to the Milky Way. And with the heat on the Varangian, he probably wasn't going to be heading back that way anytime soon. Besides, it'd just slow it down.
I used to have a ship capable of space folding. That's what we call the technology on civilized worlds, since it's not technically a wormhole.
I gathered that much. Now stop mansplaining and take me to it.
The key word you're choosing to ignore here is used to have a ship. I lost it 10 years ago gambling with these cheating bastards called the Delugians. They hole up in their gambling den a few minutes from here. But I don't even know if they still have the ship. And they are a dangerous lot.
10 years ago? That's all we have to go on?
Abira sighed, knowing that Afanav was probably the only chance she had of navigating Radiant City in a hurry. She also didn't have any kind of currency to buy a ship, even if she found one capable of making it back to the Milky Way.
Fine. Take me there.
As Mizuko was slimy tendrils move pieces from across the universe, Birx and Mikey are hot on the trail of Abira, whose encrypted memories revealed the horrifying plot to create Daphnes all across the universe, doomed to be forever trapped in synthetic bodies made for all manner of nefarious purposes. As Isaac escorts her to the last known location of his starship, what will she have to do for the Delugians to give it to her? Find out next time on Hardwire Heartache, Episode 8, Deluge.